Kareem Ray, your host at the One Soccer Nation podcast, where we explore the vibrant world of soccer through the eyes of the most influential figures. Today, we're honored to have two distinguished guests from Inneuractive, a company revolutionizing the world of sports medicine and performance enhancement. Please welcome Dr. Joseph Clark, Chief Science Officer, and John Vincent, President, both with extensive background in neurology, athletics, and biomedical research. Together, they are leading the way in concussion prevention, recovery, and performance enhancement. Join us as we dive into their careers, insights, and their intersection of science and soccer. Again, Dr. Joseph and John, thank you so much for taking the time today. How's it going?
Great. Yes. And thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here and talk about neurovisual training and what we're doing at Inneuractive.
Amazing. So I appreciate you guys taking the time again. What is Inneuractive for our guests?
Well, Inneuractive is actually a vision that was seeded by John Vincent. I have been, had been the independent neuro consultant at the University of Cincinnati, where I took care of people with traumatic brain injury, concussion in athletics, but we also did neurovisual training for injury prevention and performance enhancement. John was an athlete in the University of Cincinnati football team, had seen it firsthand, so seen the neurovisual training as an athlete. And then when he graduated, he went into an MBA program and was an intern with me. And for me, my memory is he literally asked permission to start a company, asked me permission to start a company based on what we had been doing with the university athletics. And that's kind of the genesis from my side. John, do you want to add to that?
So essentially the reason why I started Inneuractive was because, as Dr. Clark mentioned, I was on the football team for the University of Cincinnati. I did the neurovisual training firsthand. And with my background in neurobiology, Dr. Clark and I would always talk about, kind of the foundational neuroscience, the foundational neurophysiology of why we were doing what we were doing. And then once I graduated, I actually joined the research side and learned firsthand how to conduct these neurovisual assessments on both the athletes and non-athlete TBI concussion patients. And so the goal of Inneuractive, from my perspective, was to scale the incredible results that we were having with our athlete and patient population to the broader masses. And so, that's with first and foremost sports performance enhancement, but then also with diving into concussion prevention and rehabilitation as well.
Amazing. With all the amazing work, research, and studies and results that you guys are producing, what athletes in what platforms, whether it's schools, professional clubs, where are you guys currently helping, and how do you guys plan on scaling
that? Well, the where is with lots of different sports, and field sports are a sweet spot for what Inneuractive is trying to do. We do what we call neurovisual training, because it's more than just vision training, and I don't say just in a diminutive way. Vision training is a thing, it's been around for decades. Neurocognitive training has been around for a while as well. We merged the two. And that's what Inneuractive does with neurovisual training for field sports. So for a sport like soccer, it's awesome for field awareness, peripheral vision, depth perception, ball trajectory, speed of the ball, speed of the adversary coming at you, keeping track, multi-object tracking, visual tracking. So multi-objects are multiple people on the field. So neurovisual training is very good at taking in the visual information that people see every day on the field and giving the brain a little bit better experience on using that information. It works for all positions on the soccer field and other sports, including goalies. One of the full-time employees at Inneuractive is a retired goalie who played in Europe. And I think you've spoken to him, Robert. And he is a big believer and has incorporated a lot of what we do in his soccer goalie academy, because he works as a goalie coach. The other component is a little bit harder to characterize, but a lot of people in sports will experience it, and that is the speed of the game. The game is very fast, and after a period of time, many athletes will start to say, all right, the game is slowing down. And it's not slowing down. It may even be getting faster, but their brain is processing faster. So the other component is the speed of processing, getting information and processing it faster. And that's kind of how the neurovisual training that Inneuractive does will help with performance enhancement and injury prevention. You know, it's the blindside hit that hurts a lot of people.
100%. And I recently seen like even like strengthening your neck will also help with that as well.
If you're talking concussion prevention, there is some literature on that. Certainly, controlling the header is critical. You have to have good control. I actually, as a personal opinion, I'm not a big fan of big, huge traps. On a soccer player, you need good dynamic control and the speed of acceleration and deceleration. So good neck muscles, yes. Big, huge neck muscles, not necessarily. And I will train female soccer players, and they don't want huge traps, but they can have strong, dynamic, and well-controlled neck muscles with good strength and conditioning, which I completely agree with, and that will help them, say, control the header, control their head, be able to decelerate or take a hit should that have to occur.
Understood. John, did you want to touch on that as well?
Yeah, so just to answer like the other part of your question from the business perspective of, how are we trying to scale this? And currently we are still predominantly in the Cincinnati area in Ohio. We actually are just now branching out into Chillicothe, but we're working with local high schools at really all levels. We do have professional one-on-one training services. We do offer. We do work with high school athletes as well. We've partnered with CrossFit Cincinnati, which is a big local CrossFit center in Cincinnati, Ohio. We do have some hubs that are currently in development in California and Florida. And we do also have another one that's in development in Las Vegas, Nevada as well. Mm-hmm. But really, we also offer like a certification program so you can learn these methodologies. So Kareem, if you're like a one-on-one soccer trainer working with professional athletes on drills, you could get certified as what we're calling a CL1 neurovisual training instructor to learn some of these methodologies that you could then impart upon your athletes as well. So that's kind of the foundation in how we are trying to scale it by standardizing the methodologies that have been peer-reviewed and published through Dr. Clark's work. And for the broader athletic population.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was just going to say that the opportunity for coaches to get certified by you guys to also add this to their training is an amazing opportunity for them. Mm-hmm. Dr. Clark, did you want to add anything in there, or?
No, I was just active listening.
Understood. Can you guys tell us more about Inneuractive's mission and vision and how it intersects with the world of soccer and sports in general?
John, you want to go?
Yeah, I can take this. So from my understanding, or from my perspective, and I kind of said this earlier, but what I see Inneuractive's mission to be is to scale the results that we had in Cincinnati. to really help the patients of concussions and traumatic brain injuries, which athletes are a high risk group, a high at risk group, and from just the results that we saw with working with not just the American football players, but baseball athletes, with soccer athletes, with even the UC cheerleading team, we were able to have significant results on just their recovery time post-traumatic brain or post-concussion. And that's really what we were trying to do, is to scale this. So not, people from other parts of the nation don't have to come to the University of Cincinnati or now, our hub site at Inneuractive's location in Cincinnati. But we're trying to scale this to have these partnerships with California and with our partnership in Florida, so that we can start developing these hubs around the nation to really get this research out there and practice in an appropriate way.
Understood.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Clark, what inspired you to combine neurology, optometry, and physical medicine into a systematic approach for neurovisual training, and how does it benefit athletes, including soccer players?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's an awesome question. So it was kind of a long and windy road, but first, I'm a certified and licensed athletic trainer, and I have been a certified and licensed athletic trainer since 1984. So this is literally the 40th year of being in athletic training. But after becoming an athletic trainer, I actually fell in love with neurophysiology and neurologic rehab. And athletic training has a lot of rehab, and this was a separate, very small niche at the time. And then after being in athletic training for a little while, I segued to that and spent a good 20 plus years doing and learning neurophysiology. My PhD is in neurophysiology, neuro rehab, which is kind of like physiatry, traumatic brain injury, stroke, and diagnostics and rehab. And then in the mid 2000s, when the sports concussion stuff was blowing up, I, if you don't mind the expression, got the gig as the independent neuro consultant for the University of Cincinnati Athletics, which was wonderful because it merged two what had been separate disciplines, the sports and the neuro, together, because now I'm taking care of the brains of the athletes. And I took that very seriously. I would say I'm, a custodian or the custodian of the brains of those athletes, and wanted to keep them safe, do injury prevention, performance enhancement, because if you're in sports medicine, you want good performance, and often high-level performance is associated with safer performance if you're doing things correctly. Poor mechanics are often associated with higher risk of injury. And after learning the two disciplines separately, putting them together was actually a joy, because I could borrow from both disciplines, and it worked wonders. And being back, on the in the training room, on the football field, on the soccer pitch, working with the athletes, tending to injured athletes, which is not a great thing, but a necessary part of the job, and seeing that we were getting injured athletes back faster, like with a concussion. So with a sports-related concussion in most of college sports, a person is out for 2 weeks. With our program, and that's the preventative and the rehab, we were able to cut the return to play time from 14 days, 2 weeks, to just under 7. But they were healthy. I mean, it wasn't, skipping steps, because they were highly monitored and assessed. So what this does for soccer, I hope, is I really want to take away some of the fear or trepidation of headers. I cringe when I hear organizations or people saying, well, you should take out headers, or you shouldn't header till you're 16. Or I'm like, it's part of the game, and it's a beautiful part of the game when done well. And all I think is necessary, and it is a process, is the strength and conditioning, the neck strengthening, the eye discipline. We have a publication showing that a lot of people flinch and close their eyes when heading the ball. Well, when you close your eyes, you're losing situational awareness, and that's called eye discipline. We have eye discipline training. When you start putting all those things together, the game is safer and better. And I really don't want a lot of rules changed, and I don't. I hope there isn't a day where headers are taken out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely part of the beautiful game. And it's actually interesting. I was thinking, did I had the ball a lot when I was playing? And honestly, not really. But there were times I was, and I was pretty good with the head. With saying now, I think about concussions. I think about hockey. I think about really football.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are going head in first for tackles and stuff like that. What are first of all, actually, like, what sport are your favorites? And let's talk. What's the highest sport that creates the most concussions?
Well, I was going to bring up that last question as an answer. So the answer is women's soccer. High school and college female soccer players per capita have the highest number of concussions.
Wow.
And that is of concern. There are ways to fix it. When we were with the University of Cincinnati, the women's soccer team used to average 4 concussions a year. Once we started our prevention program, and remember, there's education, prevention, there's multiple facets. I'm not the only person. It went from 4 per year to less than 1 a year, 1 every other year, one or two, but less than 1 a year. With the women's soccer team, and that was sustained over several years. Excuse me. High school sports, it's the same thing. It's a higher number per capita than any other sport. Now, men's football, American football, not European football. I lived in Europe a while, so I have to characterize that. So American football, there's a lot of players. There's 100 players on some teams, and so there are a lot of opportunities for a person to get injured. They have high numbers as well, but again, per capita, it's female soccer. My favorite sport is sports. My favorite 2 sports are UFC/MMA, and I know some people are very one or the other. I like both, and American football. Soccer does come in third, but third tied with hockey, ice hockey.
Got it. What about you, John? What's your favorite sport?
Yeah, it has to be, for me personally, since I played at the University of Cincinnati, it'll always be American football for sure.
Got it. Well, it is still the #1 sport in the U.S. Hopefully, soccer is climbing up that ladder. Hopefully, we catch you guys.
Yeah.
John, in your experience, how does the neurovisual system play a role in sports performance?
Yeah, so if you think about it, in sports performance, a lot of people, just rely on traditional strength and conditioning, right? You get stronger, you spend time in the gym, and you get stronger on the field, you get faster on the field. But a lot of people take out the first part of that, which is what makes your muscles contract, right? It's the nervous system. Your brain, you're taking in information, processing that information, and then deciding what to do with it, and then executing an action, right? And all of that comes before the actual muscle contraction. And so that's what we are trying to do, and that's what Dr. Clark's research, has been working on, this prevention and rehabilitative program. One of the things we usually say is we call the prevention part prehab, right? It's just like strength and conditioning. Why are you doing strength and conditioning? Well, it's prehab for going out on the field and, being as strong and quick as possible. But if you were to get, unfortunately, injured, like a muscular injury, which happens all the time, you are, I think it's routinely like 4 to 6 weeks for the average person who tears their hamstring to fully recover. But you see athletes time and time again recover in 1 to 2 weeks. Well, why is that? Because their strength and conditioning, their regular strength and conditioning program is a prehab because their body already knows how to bear load. They already know how to do proper squat mechanics, proper lunging technique, working these muscles appropriately. And so that's what this neurovisual training prehab program is. It's training your central nervous system to, really be able to take in that information efficiently, process that information efficiently, and then execute the muscle contraction effectively.
Understood. Speaking from an athlete perspective, when I was young, I was never thinking about injuries, but they do come. It happens to all athletes. It's bound to happen. Especially if there's not the proper training, especially something that you guys are providing, if there's not a proper recovery system, especially, I grew up in Canada, so we didn't really have that infrastructure growing up versus the UK. Their football system is extremely different to our soccer system here, right? And that's growing in the US and Canada now. With saying that, I'm actually really interested to get both your perspectives on what about like having a positive mental and positive attitude, and how does that play into part, especially with the stuff that you guys are doing? Do you guys include certain mental training in that regards, positive affirmation, positive thinking on the field, stuff like that? Or do you guys really just focus in on the science, the research, and implement those?
Yeah. So the the mental resilience is absolutely critical. And what we often do is we challenge a person with multitasking. And multitasking is hard for everyone. And everyone should know that when you start multitasking, your efficacy of your tasks are going to go down. Let's take a single example. And a goalie drill. And you're a goalie drill, and all you're supposed to do is catch and release. And you have to make a decision: catch, release left, release right, or kick. All right, we make it a 3-way decision. And the way we give that decision is red balls go right, green balls go left, blue balls go straight. Right? So as far as what you're doing. And we'll do a pitch and catch. That's great. Everyone does fine. Now we throw balls rapid fire. So they have to do that faster. It's a little bit of stress. Now we throw multiple balls. Now, yes, in a goal, you're not going to get multiple balls, but you need to concentrate. So then we prioritize. Red is number 1, green is number 2, blue is number 3, and you have to go for the priority, because it's similar to what you do in a keeper situation. You go for the ball, not the man, and you have to make that decision. Instincts, especially with younger athletes, the man is a lot bigger than the ball, but you have to ignore the man and go for the ball. And so there's that resiliency. And we do it very quickly where a person's going to fail. So they have to learn to fail and move on, and then we're saying, hey, that was actually still really good. You want to do better, that's fine. We use the positive reinforcement. We take a person to or through failure, and they learn from it and learn to just let it go. And that's just one example. We have other examples where we give them verbal tasks, whether it's a flashcard or like on the Dynavision light board, it can flash words. And they have to call out what's on the flashcard or in the on screen. And those things can be sometimes challenging, sometimes funny, but they have to stay on task. So one of my favorite ones is they're not supposed to laugh. They're supposed to stay on task. Then we throw in silly phrases like, coach's breath smells like beer farts, and silly things that they're supposed to stay on task. They still have to say it because they have to communicate, but maintain resiliency. And then we can also do things with that calling out of the words, say, have serious phrases, like I've got a test tomorrow and I haven't studied if it's a college student. And that's just some ways to build resiliency. They have to say it, they have to deal with it, and they have to move on.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, Dr. Clark, was the Dynavision example where, you could even imagine with a soccer athlete where they would have to, the primary task is hitting as many buttons on the light board as possible while dribbling the soccer ball between their legs or with their feet. and then having on the T-scope, the center screen on the Dynavision, positive words of affirmation that they have to say out loud.
Mhm.
The primary task being hit as many buttons as you can. You're training multiple different cognitive processes there, while also incorporating that into what the athlete's primary goal is dribbling the ball.
Understood. With saying that, one of the things I was thinking about was like, after recovering from injury, was like the confidence in mind to like go back and getting it into a tackle or running at pace with the ball. So building up that confidence,
Mhm.
that was a hard thing as well.
Mhm.
Just reflecting on that, that was kind of like actually a scary thing uh,
Mhm.
after injury. So pretty interesting how powerful the mind is. With saying that, John, could you share some of the examples of a success story with where Interactive's methodology was implemented and had a significant difference on the performance of the recovery of the athlete?
Yeah, so the story that I want to relate is a University of Cincinnati athlete that I had a relationship with, had baselines on, had done the prehab, as John alluded to, neurovisual training for performance enhancement. I mean, you know, bad life events occur. He was in a very serious car accident. He had a traumatic brain injury as well as orthopedic injuries. Um, and I'm near death. Okay, so a near death kind of car accident. It happened near Cincinnati, so it was in the University of Cincinnati Hospital. The next morning, I was one of the medical staff members that went into the hospital, talked to his parents. Started saying, "We're going to work with him. This is going to be a long process." He's unconscious. He does not remember any of this. And on a very clinical note, I looked at him because I was, in the room with him, and he was so banged up, and that's a very soft term. I couldn't recognize him as the person that I knew. I mean, there's a lot going on, and I'm being cryptic because I don't want to be unnecessarily graphic. Anyway, he was in hospital and in acute rehab for 7 weeks. The When he was discharged from rehab, it went to the fairly high level in the university administration. But when he was discharged, they told his parents that a successful outcome would be what's called activities of daily living. And that means he could live independently, but not to expect him to go back to school, not to expect him to, have high functioning cognitive ability, because it was a very severe traumatic brain injury. Um, I saw him at 7 weeks, and it was a severe traumatic brain injury. Um, he had a lot of function, but not great function. I mean, he was literally not moving one of his arms. He had a jaw injury, so he could not speak very well. Severe injury to one of his eyes, so his problem with vision, skull fracture, cerebral spinal fluid leaking from his nose. I mean, there's a lot even after 7 weeks. Um, with multiple people in the training room, because he was rehabbed in the training room using our rehab methods and physical therapy, so physiatry and neurovisual training. Um, I saw him every day for an hour, and then worked with his other therapists on what they were doing. And they were doing physical therapy, like arm range of motion, and he was doing a lot of work on the Dynavision to get movement back in his left arm. Speech therapy because of the jaw, again, a lot of things. And myself and several team members, it was a huge team effort, did rehab with him 5 days a week, several hours a day. In the beginning, only a couple, and then more and more. Um, to make a much longer story short, he missed one semester of school. He graduated with an above a 3.0 grade point average. And sort of the memory that I have is I was interacting with his mother and father regularly. When she said, "I got my baby back," that was like a crowning achievement for all of us, because it was that was not expected.
Wow. Yeah, that's that's a hard one. How many years was put into training and helping to get him back?
11 months.
I thought
11 months.
you'd say 2 years.
Nope, 11 months, which is fast. Yes, I think 2 years would have been a reasonable time frame. It was 11 months. I do want to say he had 115 brothers supporting him every single day because he's in the training room with the rest of the football team.
Understood. Um, wow. When you say she said, "I have my baby back," was he fully back to normal?
Uh, he'll always have a few deficits, but if you're in the neuro field, there are many times a person has a stroke or a traumatic brain injury of that ilk, and the family will know there's still something wrong. They're not right. I I might or might not have known that, but when she said he's back to himself, his personality, that's a big deal. He his speech came back. I mean, he still has scars, and he is prone to headaches. But his personality and his cognitive ability was back to what he had had before.
That's amazing.
I mean, he lost some use of his shoulder. Again, it was a very severe injury. Obviously didn't play football again. Um, but when the family members say a loved one after an injury like that is back, that's huge.
Yeah. Wow. That story really reminds me of Riley Foster. She was a professional player for Liverpool on the women's side, and she got into a really bad car accident. This is public information, and um, it wasn't until I think it was a year or two, and she got back on the. She recovered. She went through recovery, and she went back. She signed to another professional team, and she was back on the field. And I seen that. I follow her on Instagram. I've had her on the podcast, and to see her go through all that and still get back on the field, I was like, wow.
Mhm.
You gotta be strong, resilient, and have a lot of confidence. And salute to her. She got back on that field, and it's crazy. And how an experience like a car accident, the effect that it can have onto you, but the people like yourselves, Dr. Clark and John, to help with people that come across certain injuries to get them back on their feet is truly amazing, and it's such a blessing. Um,
Do you want me to give a shorter story that's sports specific?
um, I think the one that you gave is fine. If you do want to share another one, that's fine as well. I was gonna,
It's,
uh,
it's your it's your call.
no,
Like John said, there are lots of examples. So,
yeah,
um, because I mean, a serious one is serious, but
yeah.
I can
I
whatever you
think,
want to do.
yeah, I think a sports one would be good too.
Okay, all right. Um, I am still working with this athlete and was working with this athlete for a while. I was not part of the medical team with his team, but had a pre-existing relationship. He had had a sports-related concussion, was evaluated by their team, and was cleared to play. And I mean, sometimes athletes don't want to disclose everything to the medical team, but he disclosed to me that he was still having some deficiencies. So, and this is no joke, in the training room parking lot, I did an evaluation on him because I had had a baseline with him because I had a relationship with him previously. I identified a couple of minor deficiencies, but deficiencies you would only note if you had a relationship. And after identifying those deficiencies, um, I gave him some exercises to help him get better, and he did them, and subsequently got better. He was actually playing when he still had those deficiencies, but he said that after seeing me and then addressing the deficiencies that I was able to identify using the neurovisual training NVT methodologies, and then giving him NVT rehab, he recovered in less than 2 weeks from that point, and uh, he was already playing, and his performance went back to his pre-injury abilities. So he felt that it was able to get him back to what he was, because he felt he wasn't where he should have been. And we were able to identify a couple of things to work on and helped him get back to his regular abilities.
Amazing. Wow. Um, John, how does Interactive's approach to training the neurovisual system differ from traditional sports training methods? And what advantages does it offer to athletes in terms of injury prevention and performance enhancement?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like I touched on this a little bit earlier, but really it's the neurovisual training. Um, our neurovisual training program differs from just traditional sports, performance enhancement, strength and conditioning. What you typically think of when you think of sports training is we're training basically the central nervous system. We're not really working too much. Well, I mean, we do incorporate body movements and muscular strength training as well, but that's not really the focus. The focus is the central nervous system. And that's, again, kind of that paradigm of training, getting information into the brain, processing that information, and then executing a decision from that information. And so humans are really bad at actually making decisions while in sports things are coming at them, right? You have your opponents, you have a ball, you have other teammates around you, you have a lot of visual information that's coming at you. And so athletes are trained, that's why you're trained in the muscle memory, right? So when you're on the field, you don't have to think about what you're doing, you just react like you've been trained, like you've been practicing on the field. And so the neurovisual training is attempting to train your processing ability of all this visual information, so that if there's something that your muscle memory isn't accustomed to on the field of play, which happens all the time because you can't predict you can't simulate everything that's going to happen come game time. So that's what we're training, is that central nervous system aspect of it. That's kind of completely different from the traditional strength and conditioning, muscular, type of performance enhancement stuff. And I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to add, Dr. Clark, but yeah.
No, I think that's good.
Understood. What role do you guys see technology playing in the future of sports and sports medicine, particularly in the context of Interactive's work?
I think I'll start. So technology is great, but it's not necessary. And let me give you an example. Several years ago, I had some um, uh, very high level personal trainers come to the UC football camp to shadow and watch what we did. And I love educating and, love talking, love lecturing. That's just great. So they were there and they were seeing the technology that we have. And we've got, optical coherence tomography, EEG, VEP, multiple dynavisions, phoropters, electroretinogram, lots of technology, and then some things that are not so technological. And this individual asked me a great question, which is why I'm remembering it now. And he said, "Okay, picture you and the football team, the UC football team, are on a deserted island, and you can have only one NVT modality to train with the football team. What's that modality going to be?" And I have to be honest, I said, "All right, can I think about it for a little bit?" Because I could not answer right away. So I did think about it, and I took the question very seriously. And I came back and I said, "I'm going to have to say two things, but I think you'll give me the two things." And he's like, okay, two things. What two things? And I said, an unlimited supply of paper and colored pens, right? Because with regard to performance enhancement, neurovisual training, it's what's between here and your athlete that's going to help that athlete. I mean, Dynavision is wonderful, but if a person gets on the Dynavision and does one thing 8 hours a day, they're going to seriously plateau, right? So you need somebody else to guide them to higher levels of performance. Now, technology absolutely has a place because the technology will help all of us get more information. There's this wonderful QEEG technology that can tell if a person is anxious about a certain activity, if they're firing all parts of the brain or the right parts of the brain, or are they bringing in other parts of the brain that aren't necessary, doing activities. So QEEG is quantitative electroencephalogram, and they're now wearable. You put them on, and you can have people, not really play a game, but do game-like activities, more physical activities. That's going to tell us a tremendous amount. Is a person ready to go back to play after an injury? Technologies like the Dynavision. The Dynavision is a very quantitative assessment, and it's quantitative for performance enhancement. Peripheral vision, it can train peripheral vision. So technology will absolutely have a place, and I embrace the technology, but the intuition of a good coach or trainer will not be replaced by AI anytime soon.
That's a good one. We're seeing artificial intelligence take over a lot of different industries right now and moving really fast, and different technologies like blockchain, crypto, so on and so forth. But super exciting times, a bit scary too, but exciting. With saying that, can you guys plug in Inneuractives, where the viewers can learn more and connect with you guys? And then obviously I'll have guys everything linked in the description, all the links to their LinkedIn's and website.
Sure. John, you want to go?
Well, you can find us at www.inneuractive.com. We do have a blossoming social media presence, whether that's through Twitter or Instagram, where it's just at Inneuractive, or we actually just launched a new kind of training session called Neurobics as well. So the Instagram handle will be at Neurobics _ NVT for Instagram, and I believe Twitter as well, right, Dr. Clark? Are there any other ones I'm missing?
We're on Twitter and Instagram, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If you don't mind, I can add to that. So Inneuractive is www.inneuractive.com. If you, and please forgive me if I'm overstepping, but I do watch podcasts like yours, and I love it. And I don't want to do one of the things I complain about. So let me give me a chance to not do that. So I've watched several podcasts where it's like this and they do great things, and I want to know how. Well, Inneuractive.com, you can learn how. We are not, it's not like we have a proprietary secret sauce and you only get there if you give the password. Go to Inneuractive.com/newsletter, and we have 800 articles. Right, isn't it? It's issue 10, 8 articles an issue, 800 articles or so on what we do. You will get the secret sauce. Yes, you've got to read, but it's not. But it's there. We're not hiding it. We are proselytizing. We want people doing this, and you can learn how to do it there. You can contact me through Inneuractive.com. I offer lectures, online lectures, in-person lectures, but the newsletter is free. And we have something like 160 peer-reviewed. I have something like 160 peer-reviewed publications. We have on Inneuractive about 25 or 30 of those free as PDFs.
Amazing. So much value, guys. Go check it out. The work that Dr. Clark and John, the work that they're doing is extremely valuable and can help you enhance in your sport. So please check it out. Coming up here, I do want to be respectful of both your times. We have 5 minutes left, and I do have also another call. Last question. Can you guys share some of the exciting developments of future plans for Inneuractive?
Well, I'll go because John alluded to it, and that is neurobics. So, neurobics is a brain and body training paradigm for baby boomers, for 50 to 85-year-olds. There are, senior aerobics and silver sneakers, but this is a lot like our neurovisual training for performance enhancement, but targeting moms and dads. It's designed for the senior people, 50 to 85-year-olds. It's meant to be engaging and social. It's a classroom-like activity. We worked hard to choose activities that most people in that age group could do, and we have the brain overlay where we use flashcards, games, gamification. We use the Dynavision because it's a wonderful modality. And our clients are absolutely loving it. We're training new coaches to be able to coach neurobics, that is senior brain-based, body-based activity. Every single neurobic session has a warm-up, a balance and mobility. Seniors falling down can be a very serious problem. A brain training and strengthening, but it's not strengthening like, bench pressing 225 49 times, which is, NFL level, but it's more keeping the strength of your extremities such that you're able to, we use the expression, pick up your grandbaby and be able to play with them.
Amazing. John, did you want to add on to that as well?
No, I think Dr. Clark covered it perfectly. Yeah, that's like our biggest up and coming thing right now. We do have several different several different things in development, but that right now is probably the number one.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, to our viewers, thank you for joining us for this enlightening conversation with Dr. Joseph Clark and John Vincent from Inneuractive. Their expertise in neurology and sports medicine has given us valuable insights into the critical importance of brain health and performance in sports and soccer and beyond. We hope this discussion has expanded your understanding on how science is shaping the future of sports. Stay tuned for more captivating episodes as we continue to explore the multifaceted world of soccer. Dr. Clark and John, thank you for both sharing your knowledge and experience on the One Soccer Nation podcast today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.